So today I want to talk about something that nobody on CNN, nobody on Fox News, nobody in mainstream media will explain to you properly. And the reason they will not explain it to you is because the moment you understand it, truly understand it, you will never look at America the same way again. Here is a question I want to start with. Why is America fighting a war in Iran right now? Most people will say, oh, it is about nuclear weapons, or it is about Israel, or it is about Trump. No, those are the surface reasons. The real reason, the hidden reason, the reason the entire global financial system depends on is the dollar, the US dollar, the piece of paper in your wallet. That is what this war is actually about. And here is the twist that will blow your mind. The weapon that America built to dominate the world, the weapon that has kept America rich for 50 years, is now the very thing destroying America. The dollar is both America's greatest weapon and its greatest vulnerability. And this war in Iran right now, today, is exposing that vulnerability for the entire world to see. Let me explain this to you step by step in simple English, because this is something you absolutely need to understand, not just for knowledge, but for what it means for your money, your savings, your future. Let us go back to 1971. This is where the story really begins. In 1971, something happened that changed the entire world. President Nixon got on TV and said something that most people at the time did not fully understand. He said, America is no longer going to back the dollar with gold. No more gold standard. From now on, the dollar is just paper. Think about what this means. For decades, every dollar in existence was backed by real gold sitting in Fort Knox. If you held a dollar somewhere in America, there was gold that matched its value, that gave the dollar credibility, that made it trustworthy. And then overnight, Nixon said, we are not doing that anymore. So now the entire world is asking one question. If the dollar is not backed by gold, what is it backed by? And this is where Henry Kissinger enters the picture, and this is where the secret deal was made. A deal so secret that the American public did not even know it existed until 2016. Until Bloomberg filed a Freedom of Information Act request, and the details finally came out. Kissinger flew to Saudi Arabia. He sat down with King Faisal, and they made a handshake deal. A secret deal. The deal was this. America would guarantee Saudi Arabia's military protection. America would defend the Saudi royal family. In exchange, Saudi Arabia would only sell its oil in US dollars. Only dollars. Every barrel, every single one. And because every other OPEC country followed Saudi Arabia's lead, within a few years, every drop of oil on the planet was being sold in US dollars. And this changed everything. Do you understand what this means? Think about it carefully. Every country on earth needs oil. China needs oil. India needs oil. Germany needs oil. Japan needs oil. Every single country, which means every country on earth now needs US dollars to buy that oil, which means every country on earth has to hold dollars, has to stockpile dollars, has to keep buying dollars permanently. Forever, this is what economists call the petrodollar. And it is the single most brilliant and most dangerous financial arrangement in the history of the world. Because it created an artificial, permanent, global demand for dollars, not because a dollar was good or reliable or backed by gold, but because you literally could not buy energy without it. And this is a part that most people never learn, those countries that earn dollars from selling oil recycled those dollars right back into America. They bought US Treasury bonds. They invested in US financial markets. They funded American debt. They kept the whole machine running. This is the engine behind $39 trillion of US debt. $39 trillion. The US national debt crossed that number on March 18, 2026, just weeks into this war. And the reason America can carry $39 trillion in debt without collapsing is the petrodollar. Without the petrodollar, America cannot function. It is that simple. Now, here's where America made its fatal mistake. Here's where the dollar stopped being just a currency and became a weapon. Over the past 2 decades, America started using the dollar system as a tool of punishment. If a country did something, America did not. Like, America would cut that country off from the dollar system, freeze their assets, block their access to SWIFT. The global banking network imposed sanctions. Iran experienced this. Russia experienced this. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, America froze over $300 billion in Russian central bank reserves. $300 billion just gone, locked, seized. Now here's the problem, and here's what America did not think through carefully enough. When you freeze Russia's reserves, every other country in the world is watching. And every other country is thinking the same thought. If America can do this to Russia, it can do this to us. China is watching, Saudi Arabia is watching, India is watching, Brazil is watching, and they are all asking themselves the same question. Is it safe to keep our money in dollars? Is it safe to depend on a currency that can be turned against us if we make one decision that Washington does not like? The answer they are reaching is no, not fully, not anymore. And so something extraordinary is happening. The dollar is being quietly hedged, not abandoned, not yet, but hedged. Countries are diversifying away from the dollar. Slowly, carefully, deliberately, they are buying gold. They are creating alternative payment systems. They are experimenting with trading in other currencies. And now, in 2026, with this war, everything has accelerated. Now, I want to tell you about something happening right now that mainstream media is completely burying, something so important that it should be the top story on every news channel in the world. Here is what happened. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. Now, most people know the Strait of Hormuz as a geographic location, but I want you to understand what this actually means economically. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. 21 miles, that is it. And yet, through that narrow passage, approximately 20 million barrels of oil flow every single day. That is 20% of all the oil traded on the planet every day. When Iran closed that strait, the price of oil shot up to $118 per barrel, $118. And remember what I told you, oil is priced in dollars. So when oil goes up, the whole world needs more dollars to pay for it, right? Wrong, because Iran is doing something even more clever than just blocking ships. On March 14th, 2026, CNN reported, and I want you to hear this carefully, that Iran is allowing certain tankers to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, but only under one condition. The oil must be traded not in US dollars, but in Chinese yuan. Let me repeat that. Iran is using physical control of the world's most important oil route to force a shift in the currency that global energy is traded in. Not military force, not sanctions, not propaganda, geography. The geography of a 21-mile strait. And Iran is using that geography to attack the dollar itself. And this is not happening in isolation. In June 2024, before this war even started, Saudi Arabia quietly did not renew its petrodollar agreement with America, the agreement that Kissinger made in secret in 1974. Saudi Arabia just let it expire and started building a $7 billion currency swap with China, started joining the Enbridge payment platform, started accepting yuan, euros, and other currencies for oil. Saudi Arabia now sells 4 times as much oil to China as to the United States. Think about that. 4 times. China is Saudi Arabia's most important customer. Now, not America, the pillar that held the petrodollar up, the Saudi-American deal, is crumbling. Now, let us talk about what all this means in numbers, because numbers do not lie even when politicians do. The dollar's share of global foreign exchange reserves has fallen to approximately 57%. That is a multi-decade low in the year 2000. It was 72%. That means in 25 years, the dollar has lost 15 percentage points of its share of global reserves. That does not sound dramatic, but in the world of reserve currencies, that is enormous. Meanwhile, gold, which central banks normally do not buy that much of, has been purchased in record amounts by Russia, China, and Turkey. These countries are replacing dollars with gold. JP Morgan has forecast gold prices reaching $4,000 per ounce by mid-2026. That is not investors being greedy. That is central banks losing confidence in the dollar. And then there's the debt. The US national debt crossed $39 trillion on March 18, 2026. To put this in perspective, the entire US government spends about $7 trillion per year. That means America owes more than 5 full years of all its government spending. And the interest on that debt alone, just the interest, not even paying down the debt itself, is becoming the fastest growing item in the entire US budget. Now, here is a terrifying math. America needs the world to keep buying dollars, needs the world to keep buying US Treasury bonds. Because if that stops, if foreign countries stop recycling their money into American markets, America cannot service this debt. It cannot function. And the war in Iran is causing exactly that. Every missile fired costs money. America does not have. Trump has asked Congress for $200 billion to fund this war. $200 billion on top of $39 trillion already owed. And meanwhile, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Oil is at $118 a barrel. And Iran is demanding that ships pay for passage in yuan, not dollars. The weapon America built to dominate the world is now the chain around its ankle. And every day this war continues, that chain gets tighter. Now, I want to be very direct with you because I know you're not watching this video for an academic lecture. You are watching because you want to know what this means for your life, your money, your future. So let me give you the honest picture. If the petrodollar system weakens, and it is weakening, I want to be very clear, not collapsing overnight, but weakening steadily. Here's what happens. The global demand for US dollars decreases. America has to pay higher interest rates to attract the foreign capital. It desperately needs. US government borrowing becomes more expensive. That cost gets passed on to American taxpayers. Higher taxes, higher prices, higher inflation, and the dollar in your pocket or your bank account loses purchasing power. You buy less with the same amount of money. Everything, groceries, gasoline, rent, medicine, gets more expensive. Not because your wages went down, but because the currency lost value. This is not a prediction about the future. This is already happening. The dollar has fallen approximately 10% on a trade-weighted basis since the start of Trump's second term. That is a real decline. That is already in your daily life, in the price of everything you buy. And if this war drags on, if the Strait of Hormuz stays partially closed, if more oil starts being priced in yuan, if more countries hedge away from the dollar, that 10% becomes 20, becomes 30. Let me leave you with the historical parallel that nobody's talking about. When the British Empire was at its peak, the British pound was the world's reserve currency. Every country held pounds. Every commodity was priced in pounds. Britain ran enormous deficits, and it did not matter because the whole world kept recycling money into the British economy, into British government bonds. And then after World War II, Britain was overextended. It had fought too many wars, spent too much money, alienated too many allies, and slowly, quietly, inexorably, the world stopped needing pounds. The reserve currency status shifted to the dollar, and the British economy, which had been powerful for 2 centuries, spent the next 30 years in painful, embarrassing decline. America is at that exact moment, not the collapse, not the end, but the beginning of the shift, the beginning of the slow, quiet, inexorable process where the world stops treating the dollar as completely indispensable. And the tragic irony, and I want you to hear this very carefully, is that America's own decision to weaponize the dollar with sanctions is what accelerated this. Not Iran, not China, not Russia. America itself, by making countries afraid to hold dollars, by showing the world that dollar assets could be frozen and seized at any time, America itself planted the seed of doubt that is now growing into the challenge you are seeing today. The weapon America built to dominate the world is indeed the chain around its ankle. And the question now is not whether the chain will tighten. It already is. The question is how fast, and whether America has the wisdom to change course before it is too late. All right? Let us just recap what we have covered today. In 1974, Henry Kissinger made a secret deal with Saudi Arabia, oil priced in dollars, in exchange for American military protection. This created the petrodollar, a system that gave America the ability to print unlimited debt and had the world pay for it. America then turned the dollar into a weapon, sanctions on Russia, sanctions on Iran, freezing assets, blocking countries from the global financial system. And every time they did this, another country started quietly building an exit from the dollar. In June 2024, Saudi Arabia let the petrodollar agreement expire without renewing it. Saudi Arabia, the country that built the whole system, quietly walked away. In March 2026, Iran used control of the Strait of Hormuz to demand oil be sold in Chinese yuan instead of dollars. This is not theoretical. This is happening right now. The US dollar has fallen 10% since Trump's second term began. The dollar's share of global reserves is at a multi-decade low. The national debt crossed $39 trillion on March 18, 2026. Gold is headed toward $4,000 an ounce because central banks are hedging away from the dollar. The petrodollar is not dead, but it is no longer unquestioned. And in a system built entirely on trust, on the world's willingness to believe in a piece of paper, that is everything. America built the most powerful financial weapon in history. And it is now being used against America by the very consequences of America's own decisions. Whether America has the wisdom to change course before this becomes irreversible. Honestly, I do not know, but I do know this. The longer it waits, the more painful the adjustment becomes, not just for America, for all of us. Subscribe for more analysis explained in simple English, and tell me in the comments, do you think the dollar can survive this war? Or are we already watching the beginning of the end of American financial dominance? I will see you next week.